All right, folks, it's time. So get ready, get set, get comfortable, grab yourself a drink, maybe a little popcorn, because here comes another episode of the next conversation. I hope you enjoy. One, two, three. Okay, we're live. Hey guys, it's been a while. I know we did another episode a couple days ago, but due to my lack of technical knowledge, I had to throw that one onto the garbage heap. But we're back. We're going to try for round two. And today we're going to be talking about free will. And like you said, Rob, I think we've talked about this before, but I don't know. It's just been on my mind. I think we're all in our 30s, and I don't know, like this idea of free will is just it's just something I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts on it. And like, do you feel like you have free will? So I'm gonna leave it to you guys to really start, and let's go from there. We'll see where this conversation leads us. Who wants to
Uh,
start?
I'll take her. I'll take her over. So first of all, a lot of people were saved by this technical difficulty, I would call it. So be happy. You don't know who you are, but you've been saved. um, and two, I want to start out with a question. Why is this in the forefront of your mind?
That's a great question.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know, man. It's like I've been thinking a lot about this, and I'll give you a couple things. So, free will, destiny, like these ideas, I've always thought about them. They've always been something I've kind of chewed on at different points in my life, mainly because I'm like super into like fantasy, into literature, into mythology, and like destiny is kind of a key component of a lot of these stories, like this mythology, right? Someone who is destined to be something or to do something. And, I was talking, my sister, I brought her up before, and she does like social work. And I've kind of had a chance to hear some of the stories of these different people she works with and she's helped. And there was one story in particular that it kind of struck me in just how sad it was. And it almost seemed in this situation that this person was destined to be just to have shit thrown on them. Like it just every bad thing that could happen had happened to this person. And I was like thinking about it, and I was just like, we or I take for granted really like how certain things have just been very easy, uh, you know, easier. Like I haven't had to deal with these degrees of hardship. And like when you listen to some of these people's stories, it's like, oh shit, like you might be cursed. Like this might be your destiny. I don't know. It just seems like nothing you can do gets you out of this road, this track that you're on. And it just made me kind of start to question my own self and like do we all think we have free will. We think that we are the director of our lives, and you got to wonder, it's like, is that true? If you could see things from like a god view, bird's eye view, alien view, and you could see all of the pieces on the board moving, like, are there already lines tracing us to the different events that will take place in our life? Or is every day like literally a new day? And it's like you have every opportunity, as long as you have, breath in your body and a thought in your head, to completely and utterly reshape and reinvent your life. So it's like a question. I don't know, cuz I always have believed I think I've always believed in free will, but I also believe in destiny. And I just don't know. Of late, I'm 35. I'm gonna be 36 February 5th. And it's like, you just see your life and you start to think about it and you start to wonder. It's like, all right, am I steering the ship or is something else steering the ship? And if something else is steering the ship, to what end? So that's not really answering your question, Bobby A.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's kind of like these are the crumbs of a thought that led me to want to talk about this idea of free will with you two gentlemen.
That's nice. Y- I don't think ever in your entire life have you sounded more like a Matthew McConaughey inner monologue than just right there. It's like, oh, it's like a lot. I see the theme that you're going with, um, and I'm good at what I would say. How I would respond to that is, I think you touched on two things. I might disagree with you on one thing.
Oh,
I
disagree with
Yeah,
everything.
there's. I don't think destiny exists. What I do think is it's more of a consolidation, or more of a combination, I should say, of different factors that are coming in. You definitely have choices. Every human being can make a choice. However, there's, I would say, in my opinion, there's a general rubric to it. There's a general outline as to your role in existence. Now, I can later in the episode, I kind of want to get into that further. I think it's too deep to get into now. Let's hash this out more a little bit. Let's set the table before we eat dinner, as I say. Um, so I think every person has a a specific and dedicated purpose, just like Agent Smith says in The Matrix, which is a movie I also want to talk about. So everyone has a purpose. Now, you're either aware of your purpose fully, you're you know it and you ignore it, or you're willfully ignorant of it. And that's where I think that's the choice for me. You know it's basically, if we put on a theatrical play, a Broadway musical or whatever, some kind of stage performance. Everyone knows their character and their role. You can either play the role, you know the role and choose to do it differently, or you can willfully ignore that role altogether. That's the choice. We only have really three choices, um, because most of it, and as we'll get to, and I think Joseph can, I'm going to throw it back to you. It's more, I think we're more in some kind of a universal context in terms of a simulation than we actually realize. So, Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I would generally agree with like 90% of what you said. I remember we broached this topic way back when, um, briefly, but I know personally, I just like you, I do not believe in destiny or fate. I think there's certain events in our lives that just come and kind of cause us to go in a fork in a road. And just like you said, we can choose to be passive, or we can choose to be a little bit more reactive and just go towards certain paths in our lives. I just I'm not as spiritual as a lot of people in my life are. I just think things happen, and we just choose a certain path in our life to just go down a certain direction, and it leads us to more paths that lead us to the points in our lives that we're in. So it's just it's a little bit more random in my eyes than most people would see it.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. I think we're more of the same mind than probably Corvo is.
Yeah.
But also in terms of things like um, spirituality and religion and things like that, I think most of that is bogus. As we all know, any friend of the program or fan of the show is going to know that I think it's bogus. No offense to anyone out there. You do you. What do I always say? You do you, I do me. You do your thing.
Ditto.
I'm not here to make myself feel superior to you or look down upon you or belittle you for of it. If you want to go to church every Sunday, go to town. Do you? But I ain't gonna go with you. I promise you that, because it's not my bag. But
But
that,
there are people that I
yeah,
also know that don't go to church, that don't believe
uh,
in organization, and they're
but
still,
there's still, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
and
so
that's still
true.
not me. I'm pretty sure that's not you as well.
It's not, but because well, first of all, the closest thing I have to a religion is Seinfeld. That's what the rules I live by, and but I'm more of a universal guy. I think, and we've also touched on this numerous times. I think the universe itself is one organism. That's why I don't believe in
Hmm.
destiny. I think we're all together in one organism, and we're all part of this one thing that's what someone would quote unquote call life or existence.
Okay.
So, um,
Okay, that's
yeah,
interesting.
go ahead.
So, see, it's funny. You always say you're not. You are spiritual. Are not. You do not practice
Religion.
a classical religion.
Yes.
But I would say from the many conversation, the hours we've recorded, and also the hours of conversation we've had outside of recordings, that you are open to all possibilities. And
And
I,
that's what I was trying to allude to as well, because like I know Rob is this way, and I know there's another person that I talk to pretty regularly. She doesn't really believe in religion, but she's very spiritual. She definitely sees how nature plays into our life, and vice versa. So I can I can definitely see Rob being spiritual in that sense.
Yeah. Sorry, Chris.
no, go ahead,
let
go
me
ahead.
jump in before you continue. Yeah, because and the reason I would call myself definitely spiritual. So both of you are right in that context. But how I would qualify that and explain it specifically is I'm spiritual in the sense that, as you said, Joe, that I'm open to everything and everything, anything and everything, and that's important because I will never disparage or judge someone for a belief that they
Hmm.
have. Now, actions and and expressed words and reactions and behavior, that I think is open to criticism. But for what you truly genuinely believe, and not the bullshit that we were talking about in the lost episode, as we're going to call it, it's lost, it's gone. And not the bullshit where you pretend to care about something when you really just doing it for your own self-aggrandizement. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you, shit you genuinely believe in. Because I think we talked about this in there with the Darius episode, with the journeys of Socrates.
Yeah.
Humans are a triangle. We're triangles and circles. We have the physical, which is the temple. The body is the temple. We have the mental, which is your intelligence and your curiosity and your imagination. And then we have the spiritual. You need what you believe in, your soul. You need all three things to operate in order to get the full fulfillment of life. And the circle we won't get into. That's the If anyone wants to go back and listen to the Journey of Socrates last episode where I talk
Good
about the
episode.
circle.
Yeah, very good episode.
But we need you're not, in my opinion, you're not a complete human being unless all three are firing on all cylinders. You need to be a triangle. If one of those are missing, if you're eating like garbage and ignoring your like exercising or activity, you're just sitting on the couch all day, there's no
Yeah.
temple. The temple crumbles, then the triangle crumbles. If you're not reading or educating yourself or researching and sharpening your mind, talking to people, learning new things, then the mental crumbles. There's no triangle. And the spiritual is what we're gonna get into now. It's like, if you don't, you need all three. It's the long-winded way of what I'm saying. But go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
No, no. I mean, I enjoy. Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to go back and say, yes, you are. You believe okay, what am I going to say? I'm going to say this. One thing I've always liked about you, Rob, is that you do not hold anyone's belief against them. And I completely agree with what you said in that what you believe in your heart. I'm not gonna. Who am I to judge that? But I will judge a deed, and I think that is a
Yes,
good.
yes, yeah.
It's like a very important distinction, and it's kind of like this is we're taking kind of far from our subject, but that is an important distinction that needs to be emphasized because right now, particularly, it's like you can't judge a deed and you can't judge a belief. And where I agree, where like you shouldn't really, maybe you shouldn't judge a belief per se, like how you want to, the mental models you want to use to live your life and to shape it and to give it substance and joy. I don't think I have a right to dispel them, nor do I have the knowledge to maybe accurately dispel them. But I do think that you have a right to kind of call into question deeds and actions, especially if those deeds and actions impact other people and what they believe. So I just wanted to highlight that. Like, I think that's like a very good way to live your life. And I think it's like, it's kind of the right way. Like, I have only been on the planet for so long. I have a limited knowledge and I have a limited life experience. Like, who am I to tell you that how you see the world or how you decide you want to live it is right or is wrong. So I don't know. That's I just wanted to highlight that because I had never heard it really said that way, and I think it's right. And I also think that's what in some cases gives people who are like part of a traditional religion because I grew up that way, and I probably have beliefs that are into some degree more traditional maybe, but I have always noticed that within those communities there is two things that I've always found kind of in just strange for lack of a better word. It's the closed-mindedness, which is one. Like people can be very open-minded in one aspect of things but then be very closed-minded in others. Like take Christianity for example. Like if you read the Bible, it's full of very crazy stories that make their appearance in Ancient Aliens of all places and are like if you believe them, you have to have a very open mind. But then you can hear that same person or that same community say things that are very like just closed-minded or just very narrow-minded, and you're like, how can you be both, right? You believe something where they're describing a being with many eyes and a robotic almost like implement flying next to them. Like you can believe that but you're unwilling to believe this. So
I kind of think that's the human condition, though.
you're
We're
probably
Yeah.
right. I mean, I
filled
think a
of
lot of these
contradictions.
Yeah.
things are probably just the the contradictions that are yeah, just
Yeah,
part of the human mind and how we conceive of things.
yeah. If you're gonna invoke ancient aliens, you better watch out for a couple monologues from me. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
But it's the whole idea of like the free will. I guess it's I tend to agree. I agree with both of you. Like or I desire to believe or to agree with both of you. Like I want to believe, and I do think this is kind of can even play out in political mind. But like I want to believe that every person has the capacity to change their life and to shape it into a shape that's close to the shape they want it to be, right? I will never be a not a 6 foot plus black man with a 10-inch dick. Like it ain't gonna happen. There are limits to what can be achieved through positive thinking and hard work.
Yeah, that's an interesting example that
I'm
you
just
said.
throwing out. I'm thinking
Okay,
like
all
a
right.
basketball players. I'm just like it ain't
I
gonna
was-
happen.
okay.
That shit ain't gonna happen.
You
I
could
can
have
work
said
real hard.
you could have said NBA player, but we'll move on. Then. We'll
Yeah,
move on. I mean,
you've just seen deep into the mind, deep into the heart.
that was awesome.
Um,
But
but
yeah,
yeah, so like, but I believe, I do believe that people have the ability. It just takes extreme hard work, and I feel like you see enough cases of this, especially in the digital age, where you can go on YouTube and you can just see, and some of it's bullshit, but you can see people who like literally made like life changing night and day transformations, whether it's like physical transformation, whether it's a financial transformation, a spiritual transformation, all of those points on the triangle that you just described. Like you've seen people or you heard of people who have like gone from like 0 to 100, who've made these like complete transformations in their life. And that leads me to believe that we have free will, we have the ability to change. But that's not necessarily not everyone believes that. I think Sam Harris has gone on record. He's like, no, we have no free will. Like a human being has no free will. I might be misquoting him. It's very possible. But yeah, like why would a person believe there's no such thing as free will? Why would a person believe that like we are in, essentially in a video game playing a role that someone else designed for us,
But
like in the Eternals,
the way I
Joseph?
see it, though, I just feel like history shows us that we don't have free will. There's so many forces that are in play that kind of push us towards different choices that we have to make. No one has this unlimited amount of choices where we can do whatever we want. It's just not it's not feasible. It's certain spokes in a wheel or forks in the road, like I usually tend to pick out, that we have that are given to us, and then we just choose from there which road we want to go down. I just the
But you do
idea.
have choice. It's like
Yes,
just to go back, right? There's a but in there, right? It's like it's like going to a restaurant. I can choose anything that's on the menu, but there's still a menu I have to choose from.
I like that analogy, but I'm going to even make it more macro. We're all in the same restaurant, and we're all given the menu, but we can choose from that menu. I would even make it even more specific. We
And
all
the universe is the
it's the
restaurant.
restaurant. Yeah, exactly.
so we definitely have a choice, but I think that choice and free will are two completely different things.
You think?
Okay, can you elaborate, Joe?
Yeah.
I think with choice, there there's no there are no there are no impending forces in our way to prevent us from going down any path we choose. With free will, actually no, it's pretty much the same. I'm just trying to figure out a way to make it a little different.
So you're trying to find like a nuance. Like what is the nuance you're saying? Is it that I'm almost thinking that it's like we're all floating in an ocean and you can kind of change the direction that the current is taking you, but you can't really get yourself out of the ocean.
Exactly.
That's a horrible analogy, I think.
No, I think that's kind of where I'm trying to steer myself in.
Like you have
Like,
some control, but you don't have absolute control. If you were born, but I guess what is the distinction? Like where do you draw the line? Like between possible and impossible, between like free will, all caps, and choice. Like I can only move the ball slightly in a different direction. Like where do you draw the distinction? Is there a distinction? I don't even know.
Uh,
I I personally feel like with free will, there's no impediment to where you want to go. With
yeah.
choice, there are roadblocks along the way, and but you still have a path to go through.
Yeah, I think I see what
If
you're
that
saying,
makes any
Joe.
sense.
I let me you can correct me I'm wrong, but let me try to let's see if I can word that. I think free will would mean absolute control over everything that's happening
Mm-hmm.
in your existence, whereas a quote unquote choice or a decision is you, like you're in a maze and there's only one exit from the maze, but there's several other ways to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
So
you can I couldn't have said it better myself.
yeah. So, but however, I'm gonna disagree with that. I don't think the notion. I think I'm gonna go back to what we're saying before. I think we're all in the maze, Westworld style. You know what I'm saying? We're all in. We're all in the maze. So we should just if you weren't if let's just get into it right now, I don't think free will exists, but I think you still have the ability to make different decisions and choice. But for me, absolute free will to have full control over everything that's happening is a universal impossibility.
I agree.
It cannot happen.
Okay, so let me
Yeah.
ask you this question, right? Let's use the maze. So like the maze has one entry point and has one exit point. So one input, one output. And then you have the maze in the middle. And then in the maze you have different ways that you can get to the end, right? You can go left here, maybe another person goes right, but there's multiple ways to get to the end. So would you say that no matter what, the input and the output are always the same? The only difference is the middle, like how you got there, but the end point was always like you were always going to end up that in that direction,
I mean,
like a mouse in a maze,
if
right?
you
Like,
want to be literal, you could say birth and death. I mean,
well, but that's like, I mean, we're all going to be born. We all,
mm-hmm.
not born. We're all going to die. But that to me, okay, if that's what you define as like free will, that in order to be truly have free will, you wouldn't die. Like,
No.
let's bring it back a little bit. Let's just say that you didn't have the free will to be, you didn't choose to be born,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna die, and you don't have that choice. But I guess what I'm saying at least is how you choose to how you live is that free will, like how you choose to live your life, the choices you make, the how you organize yourself, what you can be or become. is that is that like is that free will? Or even in that arena, like not just how you end your life, but let's say how you spend your 40s and 50s and 60s, like are you heading towards it's weird, like when you use death is the ultimate end, and like we're all heading towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so I'm trying to think, yeah, never mind,
No,
disregard what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying. I just don't think that choices are in a vacuum. And when we're young, we are given a path, and at a certain point, all those lessons that we've learned during that path have kind of laid our foundation. So sometimes we are not given a full array of choices to choose from. Like there are people who tend to choose the um, vocation of their parents because that's what they've known their whole lives, or they choose to live in a city or a town their whole life because that's all they know. That's not, to me, that's not, I don't see that as free will.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Wait,
yeah.
wait. I want to throw one thing in before you
Go
go,
ahead.
Bobby.
Go.
And it's just that, and then because this might tie into what you're saying, Rob. My question would be: is there a difference between what you perceive as free will and like so in that case, in that example, just to use that specifically, that person is doing something because it's all they know, and it's kind of like, I'm following the model that was placed before me. Does Is that really an absence of free will, or is it a perceived absence of free will? And I'm going to leave it at that. Bobby, if that ties into what you're going to say, great. If not, we'll pick it up after. You're up, Rob.
Yeah, I think we have to pick it up after because you just gave me another breadcrumb that I want to talk about. Um, sorry. So what I was the point what I was going to make was more in line a follow up to what Joseph was saying. And free will within your life. Yes, if you want to like I would say for lack of a better term dumb it down to that. Yeah, you can call that free will, but it's not because you don't choose your origins. You don't choose where you were born, who your parents are, your class status, your wealth, your ethnicity, the location you're born in. You did those are not there's no free will, there's no choice at all
Mm-hmm.
tied to that.
Mm-hmm.
And those parameters have a bigger effect on your life than almost anything else.
I agree.
So from Jump Street, from the beginning, you're already kind of on a certain path. You're in a certain part of the maze immediately, right there. Now, within your life, you can overcome obstacles or you could squander opportunities, etc., etc. Those I would categorize more as a choice, a decision you made, not this utopian free will where everyone starts off on an equal playing field and we all rise and fall based on our actions, our deeds, and our choices. That's more what I think free will to me is some kind of abstract um fantasy, which is it's kind of harsh to say that, but it's really not. It's more I don't see what we were saying earlier. I don't think free will exists at all. We're all we're all products of our environment and our location and our backgrounds and our culture and traditions, but we still you can still maneuver around that, but those things are have such a large impact on who you are as a person and where you'll end up being and if you'll get out that maze, um not get out, because get out leaving the maze is dying, but what path within this gigantic maze. And we're not, when we say maze, we're not talking about like these remember the little pinball, like the 90s pinball games where there's like 3 different ways to go and then you get out. um Now I'm talking about where there's millions of paths to the end. So
And some longer than others.
yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so like just listening to both of you, it seems because you at one point I think you started out saying you do have free will, and now you're saying you don't have free will. And this metaphor or analogy of the maze, would you like how would you like go back and use your own imagery? Like if you have many in this maze, there's many paths to the end being let's say death, and how that death is, it could be many different ways based off of the path you take in the maze, right? One death or one version or one iteration of Bobby A has him dying by firing squad because he, I don't know, robbed the bank. Another iteration of Bobby A has him dying.
What is this, the Old West?
Yeah, this is when you're living your
the West world.
your West world. When the scene closes, actually, it's like you wake back up and there's like you're in the sci-fi world.
Yeah, I'm in the movie Tombstone, and I get tuberculosis.
Like Val Kilmer.
I'm
That's
Val
the
Kilmer.
one, man.
Yeah, He's like,
my shoes,
I'm your
my boots."
Huckleberry.
Oh man, yeah,
Great scene.
that's my favorite movie. That they did 2 Tombstone-ish movies, pretty much the same characters. The one with Val Kilmer, Tombstone, is the best.
Yeah,
the other one's Wyatt Earp with like Kurt Russell. Not nearly as good.
No. Kurt Russell
That's the
is
one.
in Tombstone.
Yes,
That's a different one. That's why
it's the one with who's the
Kevin Costner?
Yes,
That's right.
Yes, that one is good, but it don't got my Val Kilmer, which Val Kilmer killed that role.
Oh, that's Doc Holliday. Michael Bean.
Yeah,
Michael Bean is in that too.
Yeah,
Michael
such
fucking
a
Bean.
freaking
Oh
good
my
Yeah,
God.
Michael Bean is Johnny Ringo. They have the shootout at the end. Yeah. Sorry for if I spoiled
Yeah.
Tombstone for everyone, but go fuck yourself.
No, it's not. It's not. Is it Michael? It's the guy from.
It's Michael Bean from Terminator. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Michael. I'm thinking Sean Bean. I was like, that
No,
guy from
no.
Game of Thrones is not on there.
No.
Yeah, that movie is fantastic. Any of you who haven't seen it,
Go.
it's well worth a watch.
Mm-hmm.
You'll remember Val Kilmer as he was. He was the man.
He was
back in the
awesome.
day.
Yeah.
One of my favorite actors. But going back, I was just gonna say, like, you're right. Free will is a hard topic, and it's like kind of crazy that it's been discussed and it's been debated for probably thousands of years. And I agree with both you in that, like, you look at people's lives and like you are, it's like someone who's born, like I'll take for example the kids I worked with in India, right? It's like born into India. For those of you who are from India, I love your country, but there are many parts of it that are very impoverished and the people are not in a good way. So it's like, imagine you're born in India, you're born in an impoverished part of India, you're born into a social class that's on the low rung of the socioeconomic ladder, and then you're born with AIDS. These things were all out of your control.
Hmm.
Nothing you could do could have prevented the circumstances of which you were born. And because of those circumstances, one would think and one would rightfully believe that your life will be forever stunted or defined by those circumstances. You're born with AIDS, there are going to be certain fences that are put around you that are going to limit how you can move and shape your life. So I don't disagree with you guys because I was hoping for you guys to provide me the evidence to believe that we are in control of our lives. And I think the truth, for who am I to say what is true, is probably somewhere in the middle where there are many things. There are, if I could see from high above, there are probably certain paths and certain strings that are kind of connected, that no matter what, it's like I'm probably going to end up at this junction point. And I also think there's probably a lot of question marks. Like if it was a board game, it's like, yeah, you're going to end up here, but the journey there and what you learn and the events that take place between point A and point B is kind of up in the air. Um, but yeah, it's especially when you hear sads. It's really this question comes to my mind when I hear sad circumstances. When I hear about children that are born into a certain situation, or like abuse that almost seems like preordained, like abuse after abuse after abuse, like negative after negative after negative, as if you were cursed, as if there is some, you've been touched by some entity and you are literally cursed. Like bad shit is just going to keep happening to you. Where, like, that's what makes me think about this question. It's like, it also makes me understand why people take their own lives. Like, there's got to be situations where people are in where they're just like, fuck, like there's nothing I can do to get out of this. Like I'm just better off not being here and not dealing with it. So like I don't know, I'm trying to draw some lines to try to make this try to understand something in my own life. And I don't know, that's why I'm just like this has just been of late really really on my mind cuz I just I hear some of these sad stories and I'm just like shit, there's like you didn't deserve this and I don't even know if there's anything you can do to get out of it. But then again, for every sad story, there's someone who had a sad story and they changed their life in a way that you couldn't. You met them now, you would not be able to like. You would look at them and be like, and hear their actual genesis, their origin story, and be like, how the fuck did you get from there to here? How? So like you have these examples of people who like literally crack the matrix and reshape their lives. Like what do those stories mean? Like within the context of this idea of like free will and of choice and whatnot, what are these out? Who are these outliers who just like born at the lowest rung in the ladder? Everything is stacked against them, and then somehow they end up. It's like chaos is a ladder. They end up on top of the ladder. They break the wheel. They're the ones sitting on the throne at when the story ends. Like, how does that all make sense?
Chaos is in a pit. Chaos is a ladder. How many how many Game of Thrones references did you just make in the last 60 seconds? But
I probably made like five.
yeah.
And chaos is a ladder. That has become like my motto, my catchphrase. I need to put it on a sweatshirt or something because it's like I
Yeah.
think about it all the time, especially in the times
Chaos.
that we're living in.
Yeah. Then he goes everything he I forgot the monologue at this point, but we can do it at some point. He goes everything else is an illusion. The climb is all there is. So the climb up the ladder, the chaos ladder, that's really what life is. Not all these other distractions. It's really the climb. It's what it is.
Well,
No-
and just to tie on before you
Yeah.
you go into your
Yeah.
story, but that he's a good example from Game of Thrones. Like he Littlefinger, he created who he was out of nothing to a degree, right? He had connections, but like the point of his story was like he should have never been in the position or the locus of power that the show and the books you discover him in. Like when you're introduced to that character, and yeah, obviously it's fantasy, it's
Yeah.
fiction, but like that character is at the center of all these things, and really his birth, his class, his name should have excluded him from that domain. Like he created it. He climbed that ladder. Didn't end well for him, but he got pretty close to the top.
But I
Yeah.
think you alluded to it just a little. Sorry, Rob, but
Yeah, go ahead.
this self determination part I think is a myth because everyone who gets to that certain level of success has some kind of help along the way, whether it's given or asked for. I just feel like that self determination part of choice and free will is a myth as well.
Well, but I mean, you can set your ship in a direction. You might need help from the winds, but you're the one that set the ship in that direction. So, I mean, not to just tag team on this real quick. Sorry, Rob.
No,
Is
that's all right.
like I kind of agree with you, Joe, and I'll use the perfect example of Whitney Houston. Like I was listening to like a documentary on Whitney Houston of all things. My sister was watching it, and right, you look at Whitney Houston. We forget almost, or people probably who are young now don't even understand like how big of a star she was, and how what a talent she was. Like I don't think anyone, you might not have listened to her music, but if you heard her sing once, you're like, that woman can sing. Like no one will ever be able to take that away from her. But then you listen to her story and it's like, yeah, she was in the right place. She knew the right people. She was almost groomed in a sense to become the superstar that she was. And then, in hindsight, you can ask, yeah, like, would she have been able to do that without all of that help? Or would she have even wanted to become that without let's say, the maneuvering or maybe the prodding of these other influences? So I don't know. I mean, that's a good point you raised, Joe.
It is a good point because I think um, Whitney Houston, incredible artist, one of the best of all time. Very tragic ending, as we all know. Uh, but it, there is a misconception that Baelish was a quote unquote a self made man, because I don't think he is. He definitely exploited networking. He was the guy that was intelligent and clever enough to exploit his network, because Baelish doesn't get to where he is without the Aarons, without the Tullys. He was lucky enough that Hoster Tully sent Kat and Lysa to live in his all the way in the fingers as children, and he forged those two relationships where he manipulated Lysa to murder her own husband and manipulated Kat to the point where she felt sorry for him because she liked him, and then she got involved with the Starks. So now Baelish has a relationship with the Starks, and then so Baelish is not. You know who is the real self-made man in Game of Thrones? It's Lord Varys. That man came. He was castrated. He was raped and molested as a child, thrown into the pits of to die, and he became a thief. He became a male prostitute. He worked his way up step by step, where he started stealing things from people, but he did it in a nefarious way. So to your point, Chris, it's like you still gotta do, maybe if you're gonna get to that level, you're gonna have to do things that people aren't comfortable doing. It's the nice way to say it. So he started stealing. He became an excellent thief. He started stealing the most important thing, which is not people's money, it's their secrets.
Data.
Yeah, he started stealing information, and he would blackmail everyone, and then step by step, he got in Ares, the Mad King's good graces, and the Mad King was like, "That guy, I want him on my council." So Varys is more self-made than Baelish. Baelish also dicked people over, and he's my favorite character. He's definitely intelligent and smart, but there was, remember when we were talking about origins and opportunities and stuff? He was definitely gifted opportunities, which he took. He definitely took. He didn't squander them, and that's what made him where he was. But my ultimate, I just we get when we went a little off the rails there. Let's get back.
No,
So
but it's
so
still a good
yeah,
example. I
yeah.
mean, Veras is a good is a perfect,
Yeah,
very good
exactly.
example.
So I think your hang up, Chris, is the difference between choice, like some kind of, it's like a scene in terms of acting. You have improvisation, or you're told to stick to a script. I don't think our lives are scripted, but there's always room for ad libbing and improvisation. So you can always change your circumstances. And these people that have come from the depths of nothing and now they're widely successful and wealthy and famous, that does happen. You can improv, you can ad lib. Nothing is scripted. However, those are that there's still things along the way where you have to be intelligent, you have to be, like you said, hardworking, passionate, resilient.
Lucky.
Luck is a big thing. That's a really big thing. So
Yeah, luck meets preparation,
yeah,
right? Isn't that
Hmm.
the saying?
exactly. So that's when you maneuver through the maze in such a cunning way that you discover the it's like playing Sonic or Mega Man or Mario, where you find the shortcut in the level because you did something cool, or you did something out of the box, unorthodox, like you flew up way out off the board and it's like, oh shit, there's a pipe here, and Mario goes down and now you just cut half the level. That's like that's what you it's possible if you have the stomach for it. So I don't think I think that's I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your hangup is you think one thing, well, destiny means scripted and free will means there's nothing even written. You just it's all ad lib. What Joseph and I think is, it's there's an outline. You're giving a script, but it's outlined, but there's more than enough room for improv and ad lib, and that's what I think, and that's why I want to add that, like, wrinkle to the maze. You can maneuver in there, but you gotta know what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I think that is a better that explains this concept, I think, better than I could have done myself. And I think that you're right in that in kind of describing maybe how I'm thinking, because I when I hear yeah, when I think destiny is exactly, script is the perfect analogy. You really can't even go better than that. Yeah, it's like the difference between improv and a well scripted play, right? Well scripted play, you pretty much do what the director says and what's on the page. And then when you do a comedy or you're doing improv, you are there's a shape. You kind of maybe know where you're going to a degree, but there is a lot of room and space to adapt and to create. And that's probably, yeah, that probably is my hang up, is that I'm thinking maybe too concretely. Um, and I kind of know better. Like, I know I'm not. I feel like I'm mature enough to know that, like, not everyone. I mean, obviously, you are a product of your environment. You are a product physically, financially, intellectually, like what you're taught, what you're raised, genetically, right? How much intelligence you've been blessed with via breeding, right? Through genetic inheritance. And those things they will shape, they will be variables that will help or hinder your movement through life. um but I love to think of, like, the Forrest Gump, where maybe because he didn't think there was any hindrances, he didn't see fences. And and through the course of that movie, it's like he does these amazing things and goes to places and does more than someone that's far more intelligent or far more financially well off, etc., would have been able to do. So no, I think that your analogy of the script and ad libbing, I think, is very valid. I think it makes a lot of sense. What do you got, Joe?
I do feel like the allure of free will and self determination in particular is kind of pushed hard in American culture, and it's kind of dispiriting to me that it's still a thing. Like I was born in the '80s, and I just remember like late '80s and '90s how that was still like a thing that was pushed on American culture. Like, if you have the will to do this, and you can do anything you want, and I just it's not really the case. I don't know.
Yeah,
I I
it's
just
the
feel like that's a thing that most Americans think about, and I feel like the rest of the world doesn't. These
yeah.
two ideals.
I think it's true, but yeah, I think yeah, you're talking about the American dream, like Dusty Rhodes. uh, who's
Yeah,
who? I don't
no, go ahead,
I
go
don't
ahead.
think Chris knows who Dusty Rhodes is.
No, I
That-
don't. Unless he's either an
it's
athlete
like he's
or
a
it's
wrestler.
like a
Oh man.
WWE wrestler.
He
Yeah,
was a
there we go.
wrestler. He there's a promo where he goes, he's actually kind of prophetic when he says that. They go, it's hard times in America, Daddy. They go to the factory workers, they kick them in the butt, they give them a watch, and they say, "Hey, a computer took your place, Daddy." And he's kind of right. Think about that. He said that in 1985. He said they
Yeah, it's
fired all the
true.
factory workers, replaced them with a
I
computer.
I shit you not, Chris. That's exactly like the cadence of Rob right now. That's exactly how he sounds. It's insane.
Yo, I gotta get. I feel like I need to get into
You gotta start
WWE.
watching
It's like I
wrestling.
feel like it's past. Like I kind of am too old to get into it now. But I like the drama. Like I like watching MMA, and I like when they get a little bit at each other. And I feel like the WWE is just that part.
But
It's
on like
that part
super
of the
steroids.
formula. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dude.
And that's a good. He's right. I mean, this kind of ties into something we talked about in our our lost episode, which was like social media and YouTube. And I guess I was trying in a way to like kind of bring this subject up
Hmm.
in that question, because right, with YouTube or with social media is that all you see are the outliers, which makes this what you call, Joe, this kind of like this American ideal, like even more broadly adopted or desired for. Because if you look at YouTube, for example, right, the people that are on there, in many cases, they're the people you're hearing that make their way through the likes and come up and bubble up to be on your, your YouTube dashboard. They are the outliers. They are the people who successfully transformed their life, that went from 0 to 1 million, who, you know, I don't know, lived in a slum and then got a song on Spotify and now is like traveling the world performing. Like all of those kind of stories, the self-made stories, the overnight success stories, the 0 to 1 millionaire stories. Like I do kind of feel like that is believed even more now because of social media and
Hmm.
how it kind of emphasizes the stories that are horrible. Like, it's like the two poles, right? It's either the people who went from 0 to 1 million, or it's people who are like horrible train wreck of lives, like, right? Because that's how a lot of these algorithms work. It's like you're getting the poles, the extremes on either end. And I don't know, like I think I've been affected by that. I mean, I didn't grow up with social media, but like I go on YouTube every day, and it's almost become habitual. Like it's a place I go to check, like just to see what's going on. And it's like that is really a flood of of this type of, if you work real hard and you buckle down and you try and you just never stop, that like anything is possible. And I kind of agree with you, Joe, in the sense that like I don't think that's, if that is the prevailing thought in your mind at all times, I don't think that's a net positive. I don't know. That was a little bit of a rant.
No,
Sorry.
that was a good rant. I like it.
Because it's like there's, to what you said earlier, Rob, and you say it so eloquently with your triangle, right? There's these multiple points you need to have, and they need to be balanced in order for you to really be I think to what you were saying, Rob, like a fully fleshed out, fully functional, balanced human being. And this single-mindedness to like in America is very focused on success and wealth. And I don't think it's
Yes.
necessarily all negative. And I don't think that like the way the rest of the world is like all net positive, because there ain't much coming out of a lot of these places. There's a reason why all of the best television, all of the best entertainment, all of the best technology for the most part comes out of, I'm going to call it America.
Mm,
America.
I
What?
disagree with that little.
yeah,
In what
I
respect?
couldn't.
I feel like there's certain areas that kind of do
Such
the same,
as.
like South Korea. They do the pretty much the same thing. They have amazing entertainment. They put out.
Okay. I mean, there's the other places that do it. I'm not going to say that complete, but let's put it this way. If you are an actor or an actress in
Yeah,
any of these countries,
Hollywood.
where will you
Yeah.
go when you become famous?
Hmm.
I mean, there's a reason why, um, how many Spanish speaking, how many actresses that really don't even speak English very well, but can speak it on camera, like they left their country to come
Come
here.
here, yeah.
I mean, Penelope Cruz, I mean, she still is not, her English is okay, but I mean, she came here for a reason to like, this is where you make your paycheck. So, yeah, no, I mean, other countries obviously do good things. I'm not trying to say take that away, but I would say that broadly speaking, like the entertainment that comes out of this country is probably at the top of most countries. South Korea does fantastic stuff, but I mean, there's. Did you see the Train to Busan, Joe?
I feel like that's the only one I haven't seen. I've seen just about everything else.
The only thing I was going to say is one of the main characters in that, it was the character in Eternals. That's probably was
Mm,
his biggest
okay.
payday, was doing Eternals, and he's not like even talking that much. So anyway, I don't know. Go, you guys
Yeah,
go.
but hold on. Why are you pushing Korea so much, Joe? Oh yeah, I know why. But we're gonna move on.
Wait, oh,
We're gonna.
you're
Oh
just
man,
dropping bombs out of
pressing that one
nowhere.
under.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
You did call. You're like, no, Korea
Yeah, I
specifically.
No,
came
well,
in with the
one, you
cheap
kept
shot there.
okay.
Uh,
That is a cheap shot, but
I think we know
yeah, it's
yes,
like,
why.
and
oh, I know
I
why.
think I got it. But also, you threw out the circles and the triangles, and I kept thinking of Squid Game. So
Oh
that's
no, I mean
another
that
thing.
they.
That's another thing. Yes,
I mean,
but I know what you're
don't
talking
you
about.
dare think that fucking Squid Game. This is we're going back to Nietzsche and fucking Camus. Squid Game is
Oh my
nowhere near
god.
the or like the originators of that. So get this. Let's get that in first. Less
The
of that.
disdain. He's like,
Less of
how
that.
dare
Yeah.
you?
Oh my god.
So, but also like to your point, Chris. Yeah, I think we are on the forefront of most of those frontiers. However, we have the best, or I wouldn't say best, we're amongst the best at the very top tier of technological advancement. But guess who makes all our parts? Look at all our devices. Where are they
Oh
made?
yeah,
You see, so
absolutely.
it's more global than we let on.
But
Well,
I, I
they're made
do
by the Kingdom of China.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
do think that I don't think that our content is better. I think we market our content way better than any other country.
I
We
mean,
know.
I'm not commenting on content,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that the breadth of the American entertainment diaspora, let's call it that, is vast. And I would say that probably if you were to pick one, just like the majority of our goods come from China, not to say that the goods are of the best quality, but the majority come from there. I would say that Game of Thrones, for example, right? American made. It's produced by HBO. I had a conversation about Game of Thrones in the heart of India, a
Hmm.
deep like Bobby A conversation about Game of Thrones. So like just to show you like that piece of media that came out of our country
Hmm.
had a world was just like captivated the world because of its content. But I do think that like what we produce is well liked around the
Yeah,
world.
no, it's true,
Anyway,
and
we didn't need to
that's
talk about
what makes. And I hope they hear this. because Weiss and Benioff are cocksuckers. Fuck them. And I never, if I saw them in the street, I don't even know what I'd do. I wouldn't physically harm them, but I'll say something. I'll be like,
Dude,
nice job, dicks.
how much
Yeah.
hate mail do you think they got? Like, we never
Oh,
talk about this.
yeah.
Like,
The
you get
millions.
in this day and age, the amount of negative tweets and emails, like they must have gotten so much.
Astronomical amounts, probably.
Because even the actors in interviews
Yeah,
We're
they.
pissed.
were like throwing them under the bus. Like, dude, we know, we're sorry, we were part of this tragedy.
But you know what's funny?
Let's
They.
not move. Let's move on.
Well,
But
well,
make your
I
last point. 'Cause
well,
go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
I feel they pushed. They kind of accelerated the ending of Game of Thrones to move on to Star Wars, and they wound up leaving Star Wars because of the backlash that they got from how they pushed Game of Thrones. It's kind of odd to me. If they would have just stuck the landing, then they would have easily been able to do the content that they wanted
so
to.
shitty.
It's weird.
He's having
Yeah,
flashbacks.
no,
like,
no,
he's
I'm
literally-
getting
it's like
PTSD.
a-
let's
correct.
move
He's
on.
like someone who's gone to
Yeah.
war and he's just like starting to get hot, sweating.
Yeah, it's like that scene in Seinfeld where Frank Costanza's cooking for at the
Exactly,
party,
exactly.
and then he thinks about when he was in the Korean War. That's what's happening to me right now.
I just rewatched that episode. He started, one of the characters
No,
coughing,
yeah,
and
he's
then he
just
starts
like,
saying,
don't eat
Don't
eat the food.
don't
He
eat
starts
it."
flipping the tables over. Yeah, let's move on because I'm gonna fucking
Oh,
start
man.
flipping
Is
tables.
he still alive?
No,
No, Jerry
Oh.
Jerry Stiller has passed, unfortunately.
When did he pass? Did
I
he
think-
pass during Corona?
I want to say just before it.
Yeah.
Oh man, well I'm happy that he didn't have to deal with that, but that's sad. Yeah, I rewatched almost all of Seinfeld again, and I'm like that. It's kind of funny. And this is way off our topic, but
This is what we
but it
do
has
on
to talk about-
conversations
Yeah,
with-
this
and the
is-
next
this is called
conversation.
conversational parkour, ladies.
Yes.
and
He
gentlemen.
died. He died during the pandemic,
Ah,
May
but dude,
2020.
it's like that show. It takes place in the 80s, takes place in the 90s, but it doesn't matter. Like it's just funny to me that anyone can watch it. I mean, now that it streams, there's a whole new audience that's watched it who has nothing to do with the time. Like they can't connect with the time, but the show itself, like the characters and how they related to each other and the circumstances, like they hit on gold. Like the circumstances were timeless. Like people, they resonate to the show and to each episode, even though like you could be freaking 16. You have nothing. You have no recollection or correlation to that time period, to anything going on, but you can still enjoy the show and like.
But I think that's the
get off
genius
on it.
of Seinfeld, though. They cover just
Oh, yeah.
regular stuff, and those things just happens to everyone. So I think any generation can kind of be able to just pull from it and kind of identify what's going on, as opposed to like some random story that happened in like the 70s or 80s. You can't identify it with it now.
Yeah.
Okay, and now I'm about to go into a vastly different direction. We might have to pick this up on a different
Yeah.
day, but it's going back to this free will thing.
Yeah, let's get
Hard-
the
bad
train back up the
transition.
tracks.
But it was just this. I was thinking about this, and it's tying into Ancient Aliens.
Yes.
What? And it ties into the Eternals.
Well,
my
first
man.
of all, season 18 debuted last weekend. Let's
Holy
go.
crap.
Ancient
This is
Aliens.
insane to me.
Give the
Dude,
people
18
what they
episodes.
want. Give them what they want. They
It's
want
insane.
more
Oh.
Ancient Aliens.
18 years of what's his name?
Giorgio Tsoukalos.
Giorgio Tsoukalos. 18. Who would have ever guessed that
It's
they
fantastic.
would continually get re-signed again, season after season? That is insane to me.
It's awesome. He's also I dressed up with him. No, not with him. That came out way wrong. I
No, but I
dressed
knew what you were
up.
saying.
I
That'd
dressed.
be a
him.
highlight of your life,
Yeah, I
man.
dressed up as him and went to Comic-Con, and he liked my post. Giorgio Tsoukalos liked my post of me dressed up as him at Comic-Con.
That-
So
That's
I'm
hilarious.
I'm 1 degree away. I should just contact him. I'd be like, yo,
Dude, you should. Why not?
uh,
Why not?
but go
Yeah,
but
hey,
go
man.
ahead. Make
Love
your
yours.
yeah.
No, I mean, we can talk about this. This is probably a better conversation for another day, but I'll just kind of bring it up, and then when we do eventually discuss it, you'll have a little bit of time to marinate. But the question was this: is like, or the idea, the thought I'm having is like it ties into free will. Is that you know with Ancient Aliens, a major, I would say, a through line, a common theme is the idea that either we were directly influenced by ancient astronauts or our very nature, who we are, our species was the direct was directly influenced, meaning like we would not have existed or we would not have evolved in the fashion we evolved without their influence, without their direct um, stimulation. I'm trying to think of the right word. How would that tie into this kind of this conversation? Like, how does our origin story as a species tie into this greater question of free will? I'm throwing this to you, Rob, because you have the bachelor's degree in this subject. Where are you at, Rob? What you got
Sorry,
up? What about you,
sorry,
Joe?
sorry, 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 sorry. I didn't realize I was muted. I was talking. Uh, so let me rephrase the question back and to see if I got it correctly.
Okay.
Did so you're saying how does the idea that we were assisted or maybe guided by the ancient astronauts, how does this fit in the context of free will? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes,
All right.
correct. Exactly.
Um, so yeah, I was listening. I was just muted for a little bit. If you want to be honest, full disclosure, we scored in the Rangers game. I have that on in the background. So I just uh, I just looked over to the TV and it happened to happen. I mean, what can I do? But so uh, anyway, back on track. So what I think that's it. I love that question, and here's why. Because within even the realm of the ancient astronaut theory, there is factions where um, people, some of them are firm, unrelenting believers of we were helped and we were given to the point where we were given blueprints to make these structures and advance our civilization. There's others that are take a more, I would say, philosophical approach where there were it was more of a like a guardian angel type thing where you didn't see him, we didn't have anything physical, but there were signs, right? Just like the movie, just like the Mel Gibson movie. I can't believe I fucking referenced a Mel Gibson movie. Fucking a, but that was a decent Mel Gibson movie actually. That was M Night, right? That
M
was
Night
M Night.
Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, whoo, he fell off the cliff. But
Mhm.
isn't he making that new baby show? What is it called? Sinister or whatever that fucking show.
Oh, on
No,
Apple TV.
Servant,
Yeah, I
Sinister.
didn't. Whatever.
This is
It's
Mel
terrible.
Gibson.
No,
No,
no.
M
M
Night
Night Shyamalan.
Shyamalan.
Oh, I was gonna say for a second.
Yeah, he has like a creepy horror baby show. It's terrible. But anyway,
He,
yeah.
dude, I mean, he was great. He was such an interesting director, but like after the second movie, he just kind of went away.
Okay, yeah, no, it was. Don't watch Servant. It's a waste of your time. But going back to that, so there's these two factions, and then my where I come in is kind of what you were saying, Chris. I think yes, possibly there was some kind of influence, or I would say not interruption. That's not the right word. Maybe a guidance is the right word, or any synonym with guidance. But it's not like, and the drawback of that show and why a lot of people um, treat it as a goof, which it shouldn't be, because it's, if all else, I think we talked about this before. If anything else, it teaches you a lot about ancient culture and antiquity and traditions and history. You learn a lot, even if you don't believe that all aliens help these early civilizations. But uh, what I'm trying to say is, and I'm doing poorly doing it, but we're gonna get on the track. What I'm saying is, if you ask me if they're what their role in free will is, I think that's, if you were to ask me, I think their presence is real. and that they're part of the engineers of that outline I was talking about. They helped create the maze, and not that they are controllers of the maze or the architects or the analysts, if it, in Matrix lingo, they don't control it, but they're part of the creation of it. So they had a heavy influence on what created this quote unquote scene outline. If we want to go back to the acting analogy, they helped create this outline, but they don't have the dogged everyday individual influence that a lot of like Tsoukalos, David Childress, William Henry, all these other guys. And yes, I know their names. I know all of their names. And they don't have that direct influence as they're made it out to be. But there is external life outside of planet Earth that did help. And it goes back to what I was saying about the universe. We're all one, so they're just as much a part of this existence as the perspective of what human life is. Does that make sense? Did I make sense at all? Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, no, I think I got you, Joe. I think Joe's about to bring up something about
Okay.
the Eternals. Am I right?
No,
Yeah.
I'm surprised you keep like bringing up the Eternals. I'm surprised how much of an
It
impact.
stole my mind,
Yeah,
man.
it's
I think it
crazy.
stole my mind.
We'll talk about that.
Wait,
another
what is
point.
the Eternals? First of all, for I'm
It's
unfamiliar.
it's a Marvel movie. I'll
Oh
describe
God.
it to you at another point. I think you would honestly. This is the one Marvel movie that I think you would
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
The only thing
It
is
ties
it's
a
a bit
lot
long.
into like certain ancient alien ideas,
Mhm.
which I think you would like.
Okay.
But go ahead, Joe.
I do think that humanity's perception of free will is heavily colored by the universe and how it's perceived to have be or been, how it became. The idea that humanity can, I don't think humans really can think that um, the universe is just a spontaneous thing. I think people want to believe that it was constructed for a purpose, and I think that's part of our kind of psyche in terms of how we think about our lives and how we create things. That's just something that I always think about when someone brings up uh, free things like free will, other than the political aspects of it.
That's interesting, Joe. Joe, I gotta give you. I kind of complimented you on the Lost episode, but since it didn't come out, I'm gonna say it again. I through doing these podcasts and listening to you, and then also editing them and listening to you again, I got to give you both of you. But Joe, I want to because you don't talk as much. Me and Bobby A will just kind of like
Nah.
talk and ramble and hopefully sometimes there's good shit there.
Yeah.
But Joe, dude, you should maybe think about becoming a. I think you'd be a good teacher. I think you would be a good like a history teacher or something along those lines.
Hmm.
Because I feel like you think a lot about this stuff more than you probably let on to at least me, maybe to Bobby A. But that was like a well, I don't know that your what you just said kind of struck me because you're right. Like our both of what you said was both you and Rob was it was very good because like yeah we look at these things from our perspective, our as a human, our place in the world, and how we believe the universe, you know, our view of the universe really kind of paints ourselves, you know, shows it really.
The imprint.
Yes, exactly. And it's like if you believe that the universe spontaneously came out of nothing by chance, that is going to a degree have to impact how you view yourself
Hmm.
and your place in it. Whereas if you believe the universe came to existence through other means or was engineered, or if you're a religious person, you believe, which is kind of the same thing, that a God created it, you know, that it came, that it had purpose, that it was made through intention, that would, by extension, impact how you view yourself and your place within that universe. So I don't know. One, I want to compliment you because I want to say it's like I learned a lot from you because a lot of times you disagree with me, and no, I mean you do a lot, and I
Yeah.
just like I value it. And while I'm at it, since it is a new year, I'm gonna also compliment Bobby A because a lot of times you say things in so much more profound and clear. You say my own thoughts in a much clearer
Yep.
and a
Same.
much more imaginative way. So I
Same.
appreciate both of you guys.
Yeah, that's why we're a triangle. That's where there's three people. We put it. We come back full circle, son.
There we go.
There, um, uh, so yeah, like to say what I don't know, man. There's to. I want to make a final comment on this. I think we put as and not just a society, not in it just by humans in general. We put it's kind of like how the political spectrum has become so extreme. You're either team A or team B, and there's nothing in the middle. And if I'm team A, team B is evil, and if I'm team B, team A is evil, stupid, and everything. There's just no room for discussion and negotiation, and that's why I like these conversations because there's room to disagree, to make points, to think out the box, to be weird, to investigate the bizarre or the mystery and the curiosities of the world. But it's gone to the it's we live in a world now where it's too black and white, and I don't mean to get on my hind horse and like my pulpit and just preach and lecture people, but I think we need more. We need to examine that just because I say free will doesn't exist doesn't mean that, as Chris said earlier, you can't be the poor kid from Nebraska that that lives on a farm and knows nothing about the outside world, but then becomes like a tech giant that starts one of the greatest companies in the world. You can it's still possible, right? I'm not just because I say there's no free will doesn't mean everyone has a scripted path and you only can do this, right? However, what I do believe in is it's much more difficult for that person than some person born into a wealthy Silicon Valley family in San Francisco. It's much more difficult that way. Not to say you can never do it. Any people, you can achieve what you want if you're truly dedicated to it. And however, there are innate limitations. And just because they're innate limitations doesn't mean that I it's an insult or disparaging. It's just a fact. It's just the way life is. And we don't choose the location. Some people are born in North Korea. They don't even have access to the internet. So you see what I'm saying? That's my point is we're our and like Joe said, luck has a lot to do with you. But where the choice comes in is when you get the opportunity, you can either choose to seize it or squander it. That's where you come in. But luck does still play a large amount in what in this debate between does free will exist or we can just go fucking full Matrix and say, it's a simulation. Someone made a video game and we're all in it.
Joe, what
Yeah.
do you think? What are your final thoughts?
I can't see a way to follow up on that on what Bobby just
It's
said.
too
That
yeah,
too profound.
it's too real for you.
Well, guys,
Yeah.
hey, thank you for taking the time to chat with me about this particular subject. Hey, anyone who's listening, we're just like you. We're all human, and this is like a very human question, right? This is
Yeah,
something
man.
that people are always been discussing, and in the grand scheme of things, you got to do what you got to do, right? That's your life, right? There are things coming at you. It's kind of like that's the reality. There's things being thrown at you at all the times, and you're ducking and you're weaving and you're doing what you got to do with what you have. But it's kind of interesting sometimes to take a step back and to try to think about this and try because how you think about this kind of puts you. It's like you are positioning yourself within this model. And I think that is important from time to time. You got to kind of like take a step back and see who you are and where you fit within this system. And part of it, like we talked about in the beginning, is right. It's the mental model that you have for yourself. It doesn't even necessarily matter if it's true or not. If it helps you to kind of empowers you to move in the world, um, who am I to say that it's a bad thing? So I just want to thank you guys again for being
Wait,
here.
one more point, and I think that's an excellent point, Chris. And I want to put a punctuation mark on it because I you moved me with
Hit
this.
it. Round us off.
So is this so well said? Because you can be a billionaire, playboy, vigilante. You can be Bruce Wayne. Yeah,
My man, Batman.
yeah. I gotta get a Batman in.
There we go.
But you can also be a farmer in the fields of India. That doesn't mean one person is better than the other. We all have our roles. We're all equal as human beings. No one is superior to anyone else because of anything. Your bank account, your assets, your material possessions don't make you a better human being. They don't. Notice how none of that is in the triangle. Just because you have a lot and you have a lot of power and you can throw money around, that doesn't make you a better person than someone else. We all have a role to play in this universal adventure.